At the beginning of 2020, I was serious about opening the bed and breakfast, so I was getting ready to make a purchase on a property here in Merida, Yucatan, and at the beginning of March, the pandemic happened and ruined all of my plans.
Hey Gen Mex, you just met Richie, and we are going to talk about his journey to moving to Mexico. So he did make that move. It just took a few more years than planned, and I'm sure some of you have come up across those little bumps in the road that may be hindering your move to Mexico, but it is possible to make it happen, and we're going to hear his journey to make it happen. So let's go back to Richie's before, kind of like when that seed was planted of the idea of having a bed and breakfast in Mexico at all.
My whole life, I've always wanted to open a bed and breakfast, and I've always felt a connection to Mexico, even as a child. About in 2017, I decided I was going to go ahead and come down to Yucatan and explore around the whole peninsula, looking for a potential home. I'd also actually thought about the central area of Mexico, but in 2017 I flew down here into Cancun, rented a car, and did a road trip around the whole peninsula looking for a place to live. So I went all down the Caribbean coast, all the way down to Bacalar, then I crossed over the peninsula going to Campeche along the coast of the Gulf, came up through past Merida and all the way back to Cancun looking for a place to live. As soon as I came into Merida, I immediately fell in love. I felt a connection here. I really liked it. I really liked the people, and the city was beautiful. So I decided to come back about 6 months later to spend more time here just to make sure that the connection was real and this is actually the place I wanted to live. So I did come back, stayed here for about 2 weeks, and I had decided I didn't need to go to central Mexico anymore. This is the place I wanted to be. I really felt connected here. I felt connected to the culture, the food. The people here are amazing. And because I was opening a bed and breakfast, tourism in this area is really hot. Lots of people like to come here for the pyramids. So I thought this is a great place to move and to open a bed and breakfast.
Yes, Merida is a hot place in more than one way. So we are filming this in February, and I think the temperature today I saw was going to get to around 95 degrees. So let's hear about the temperature in Merida and how Richie deals with that.
I moved here from Washington D.C. The summers here are actually kind of similar to the hot season here. So the hottest part of the year is at the end of at the end of March through April, and maybe a little bit at the beginning of May. So if we're talking in Fahrenheit, we can get up to 110, 115 degrees Fahrenheit with high humidity. That's also the beginning of the rainy season, so there is some relief during the day. It can rain, we can have a tropical rainstorm that will dump inches and inches of rain very quickly at any time during the day. So that can bring some relief for the temperatures. In the winter, like we have now, the temperature, we can have cold fronts that will lower the temperature down to the mid 70s and can get all the way down to the upper 50s and the low 60s at night. Today it is going to be about 95. We are having a heat wave, so this is actually unusual temperature for right now. There is a beautiful breeze. The humidity is relatively low today, so I'm actually comfortable in wearing a long sleeve guayabera.
And I promised myself I am going to buy one of those guayaberas before I leave, because this seems to be the place to buy them. I'm staying with Amy, and right next door to her place is a guayabera shop. They're all over in Centro, so that is on my list. But let's get back to today's video and hear about opening a bed and breakfast. This might be something you're interested in, or just even having a business in Mexico.
Opening the bed and breakfast has actually been relatively simple. So since I actually live here in the bed and breakfast, as far as taxes are concerned, I am the person, I'm actually the business. So the process is actually pretty simple. I also don't really need a business license or anything like that. So it's mostly focused on the actual tax process, which is pretty simple because of the bed and breakfast. So basically, I'm the business. Any income that comes to the bed and breakfast comes straight to me. So I am not an employee, but I'm actually the business. That part, opening a business here or a bed and breakfast was actually pretty simple.
Well, we're going to talk more about the bed and breakfast, and I'll give you a tour so you can see what is here. And we'll talk about how much Richie paid for this place, things like that. We'll get into numbers. I know you guys love numbers. But first, let's go back to moving to Mexico and maybe what was most unexpected in this move, besides the whole pandemic interrupting it.
As far as actually physically moving here, there was a lot of hiccups and a lot of planning that I had done that didn't actually work out. When I was trying to move internationally, I decided I was going to leave all of my furniture and almost everything in Washington, D.C. and just move down with what was most important to me. So I basically whittled my life down into 13 boxes. I filled up 3 suitcases, 165 pounds worth of luggage, and flew down here for free, bringing down what I needed, immediately. I had planned to ship the rest of my boxes FedEx. The price of moving internationally was I was getting quotes between $5,000 and $7,000 US, which doesn't seem like a lot, but then I was only moving 13 boxes, so that seemed ridiculous to me. So I thought, okay, well, let me think about moving these boxes, shipping these boxes down FedEx. So I tested 2 boxes. So right before I left Washington, I took 2 boxes to FedEx. It was supposed to be 3-day shipping. So that didn't happen. So I moved down here with my suitcases. I got here 3 weeks later, my FedEx, my 2 boxes finally arrived. Luckily, there was not a lot of damage. To ship those 2 boxes, it was about $650 US to ship from DC to Merida. So in the end, after I shipped these boxes, it would have been far less than international moving. But it took 3 weeks. So there was a little bit of damage. The biggest part was I got taxed. So in these 2 boxes, one box was heirloom flatware silver, and I expected to get taxed. The other box was used Christmas ornaments that I've been collecting over the course of 15 years. Used Christmas ornaments were also taxed. So when I went to the FedEx office to pick up my boxes, it was another $250 US that I ended up paying in taxes. So I decided that plan was not going to work. So actually next week, I'm flying up to Washington, D.C. to hopefully fill up 3 empty suitcases with the rest of what's left and bring that down on a plane. So that was kind of what my plan was for moving here, my physical items, and how maybe it didn't work out as best I planned. If I was moving maybe furniture or something like that, I probably would have gone for the international movers. As far as closing was concerned, I looked at this house on October 2nd in 2023. I made an offer that same month. I didn't close on this house until September 10th of 2024. The process of closing was very long and very slow. So once I found out the house would be closing, they told me we should expect to close in about 4 to 6 weeks. That was in April of 2024. So I gave my job my notice. I gave them a 4-week notice, letting them know I would be quitting. I gave my apartment building notice that I would be leaving, so I gave my 30-day notice to the apartment building. Well, we didn't close until the beginning of September, so I didn't have a job, and I also didn't have a place to live. So I ended up living in a friend's extra bedroom during this time. So it was very stressful not having a job. It was also very stressful living at my friend's house. But most of all, it was really challenging to not know day by day when the house was actually going to close. Going through this process of closing, I had amazing brokers with Merida Sold. They were great, and they really helped me along the way and helped me stay calm and helped me know the process. But they also had to tell me all the time, listen, this is all papers. Somebody's pushing papers around. So this guy's gonna bring this paper to this guy's office, and it's gonna take a week, if you're lucky. That process was really, really stressful. I've been trying to do this, at that time for 8 or 9 months. And it gets to a point where you wonder, is this actually going to happen? Is this actually going to close? Am I actually going to buy this house? Am I actually going to move? So I think the psychological aspect of the long wait and these delays really had an impact on me. It was very challenging and very stressful just to feel that way. I flew down here on September 5th, expecting to close the next day. Well, it took another 5 days for me to actually close. So I didn't believe it was going to happen until I was sitting in the office actually signing the paperwork.
For those of you who follow this channel, you know that it took us about 9 months to close. That was during the pandemic, so there was an extra burden on top of that. But, a similar type of thing of like thinking it was going to close, thinking it was going to close, thinking it was going to close. And at that time, the peso was really going all over the place. So, it wasn't super important to us, except it's going to be important once we pay our taxes, once we sell the house. And we are within 35 miles or 50 kilometers of the coast here. So this is going to require a fideicomiso, which is the same thing as in La Paz. It's a bank trust. So it's another layer of complication, but really it's totally legit. It's not like someone else is going to steal your property or something like that. I've got another video up here, I think, about that. If you want to learn about that, anytime you're within, close to the border, close to the ocean, you're going to need to have a bank trust to own property as a foreigner in Mexico. So let's also talk about financing and costs.
I really wanted to finance the house. Financing is very challenging in Mexico, and I did end up getting financing for the house. However, I strongly don't recommend it. That was part of the reason why closing took so long. So I did go through the process with Intercam to finance the house. It was very, very long and very stressful, and it was obviously new for the banking system here because of some of the things they were asking for, the process, all of that. It was very new. The banks are also very risk adverse, so it was a very challenging and very long process. Again, luckily I had really great brokers that really helped me, helped keep me calm, and also helped keep the seller calm during this long process. Ultimately, I did get approved for the financing. So the financing was all approved, everything was in place. We are getting down to the final underwriting and the closing, and at the final underwriting, they all of a sudden decided to pull the rug out from under us, and they decided they no longer wanted to finance the house. It wasn't related to me and it wasn't related to the seller, but they felt like if the asset, if I defaulted, they wouldn't be able to sell the asset fast enough in order to recoup the money lost. So at that point, as you can imagine, it was, I thought I was going to lose my dream. So the brokers did a really great job in bringing me and the seller together. So the house ended up being seller financed. So luckily I had all of the documents and everything in place that I needed to provide the seller and her representative in order to show that I could afford to buy the house and I was trustworthy in order to buy the house. So the house ended up being seller financed. That was also part of the reason why it took so long for closing.
Well, this is something I'm fascinated by because I had always heard that you couldn't get a mortgage in Mexico on a house, especially as a foreigner without a credit rating here in Mexico. I know there's a place called Moxie out of California that will do loans like that, but I'm hoping to interview them at some point in time. So if you're watching, get in touch with me. But let's dig into dollar amounts. I know you guys love to hear those. So let's talk about, the kind of like terms of financing and the costs and whatnot.
The seller and I decided on the price of the house being $320,000 US. That was what we settled on, and that's what we agreed upon. I ended up paying 35% down as my down payment, and then the seller is financing the balance of 65%. We basically used the same terms that we're going to use with Intercam. There were less fees at closing because we weren't dealing with a bank, and the interest rate was slightly lower. So we're just under 8% for my interest rate on financing for the house, and that's over the course of 10 years. It's also a little bit different. I pay the same monthly payments, so there's not changing monthly payments. So I pay the same monthly payment every single month, and I pay directly to the seller's bank here in Merida. As far as renovations are concerned, so there wasn't a huge amount of renovations that needed to be done. So I kind of wanted to, my finances are limited, so I really wanted to do renovations that were going to have the highest impact on the guest stay. So that's a lot of things like painting. So the entire outside of the house was refinished and repainted. The outside of the house was done by the contractors. The inside of the house was done all by me and my friends. So that that took a very, very long time. The bathrooms you'll probably see later are 75 years old, and they're that beautiful, colorful tile. It was really important to me that I try to maintain as much of the historical integrity of the house as I could. So I did want to keep the tile. So what we decided to do is, it was a very long, difficult process of etching out the grout, cleaning up the grout, and then refilling it to restore all the bathroom tiles. So the contractor did that as well. The contractor also built a large deck around the outside of the existing pool. There was no deck there before, so we built a large deck around the pool. We had 2 pergolas built. So there's a wood pergola in the back garden, and then on the second floor, one of the rooms has a balcony, and so I had a metal pergola built over the balcony. In the summer, as we talked about earlier, the summers can get very, very hot, and the sun beams straight down on the house. So in order to use some of these outdoor spaces, I really wanted to get these pergolas built and have some vines growing over them to help create some shade so we could continue to use the outdoor space in the summertime. Other projects that we did, specifically in the bathroom, so I did a lot of work in the bathroom. So there were these ugly plastic enclosures around the showers. So we had all of those removed and then custom glass built to enclose the showers. Also, all the fixtures were replaced in the bathrooms as well. Around the rest of the house, all the ceiling fans, they were either new ceiling fans installed or replaced. I had to replace a broken air conditioner. There was a little bit of electrical work that needed to be done. The previous owners did a lot of electrical work, but there was a few places that we needed to fix specifically for safety. Also, interestingly, there was a connection in one of the bedrooms for a fuse that was not correct. So this is something I learned. So the fuse was not the right size. So there was constantly electricity flowing between the fuse and the electric wires, causing my electric bill to be almost double. Luckily, when I got my first electric bill, I happened to be sitting here with the contractor, and I said, "Oh my God, this electric bill is huge." And he looks at it and he says, "This is totally wrong." So we had the electrician that was helping doing some of the work in the house go and check all the connections and found 2 connections that were not correct. And so basically the electricity was never stopping. It was constantly flowing, increasing my electric bill. So it was a lot of things like that. There wasn't a lot of heavy renovations to be done in order to get the house open, but those are some of the things that I did. In total, the renovations were about 125,000 pesos. So what's that, about 8,000 US dollars?
Not a bad price for doing all of this construction. Of course, you did all the painting here. And the place is called Los Colores de Merida. And you're going to see how colorful it is as we go into walking around this place. So let's hear about the bed and breakfast itself and running the bed and breakfast and why a bed and breakfast. And then we'll go on the tour.
So I have a lot of passion around meeting different people from different cultures. I also love cooking, and I really enjoy hosting people. I have a strong hospitality background, and I'm a self-taught cook. So I decided early on in my life that bed and breakfast was a passion I had and something that I wanted to do as I got older. So again, I decided this was the time to do it. Really worked very hard on developing specific recipes. Some of the breakfast items are unique recipes that I created on my own. And then also I've been learning a lot about Yucatecan cooking. So I don't know if you've been here before, but this is not Mexican food. It is Yucatecan food. There is a big difference. I'm learning to cook with a lot of different ingredients that I'm not used to. So when I first got here, I decided, I wanted to try to take some of these new ingredients and create recipes. I quickly learned that that was not something I could do. That was not my skill set, especially with all these ingredients I didn't know, I wasn't familiar with. So I bought some cookbooks. I did a lot of research on the internet and really started working through some of these recipes. Yucatecan food is very unique. It's very flavorful. It's delicious, and it's a little complicated. So I spent many months during construction learning how to cook all these dishes for the bed and breakfast. That was fun, but anyone will now tell you that this is more of a breakfast and bed than a bed and breakfast.
So I haven't had a lot of time to try the Yucatecan food. I did try some huevos Mayan or something like that, which I'm not sure exactly what was in it. I figured it was going to be something like cilantro or something. It didn't taste like cilantro. That might be the difference here, is that the food is, the spices and whatnot are not something I've heard of before. So it was good though. So now let's go ahead and take a tour of this place and give you guys kind of the overview of what we have here at Los Colores de Merida.
So coming in off the street, almost the entire house was painted. So inside and out, including the wall on the street. So the wall on the street is this beautiful pink and blue. And then the gate, the iron gate was all refinished. That was part of the renovation as well. So the iron gate was all refinished and painted white. When I moved in, the front gardens were more like a jungle. So it took days for me to get all of the mess cleaned up to actually see what was here. So after I got a lot of things cleaned up, I actually noticed that there's a cool stone structure in the front of the house that nobody knew existed. I also found a lot of interesting plants that were being covered up by other plants. So I was able to save a lot of the tropical plants and a lot of the unique plants that were in the garden, but that took days. And also 2 dumpster truck loads of debris from the front and the back. So as we come into the front of the house, the first room that you walk into is the main living room. The previous owner left almost all of her furniture here. So some of it didn't really go with my aesthetic, some of it did. So I did keep some of the furniture, some of it's antiques. I had the sofas, the furniture in the living room recovered to be look a little bit more modern. I did have a lot of furniture handmade by local craftsmen. That was really, really important to me, and part of the culture at Los Colores is that I am bringing in the neighborhood around me into the bed and breakfast, and I'm just not a foreigner coming in and opening some business without any care about what's happening around me. So I did have a lot of the furniture custom made by local craftsmen. The main dining room is here, so most people have breakfast at the main dining room as you walk in. The kitchen is on the left side. I didn't have anything done with the kitchen. It's kind of an out of, not for guests space, so it's just for me, so I left any renovation out of the kitchen. As we walk in through the back, there's a guest bathroom on the left. And then I also have a Pilates studio, so I'm a classically trained Pilates teacher, and I teach private clients there. As we continue to go back towards the back garden, my bedroom is on the left, and again, I didn't do anything with the bedroom. I focused only on spaces that were for guests. On the right side, we have our first guest room. This is La Habitación Rosa. So it's pink, along with a beautiful pink bathroom. This is the largest bathroom of any of the guest rooms. I did remove a lot of the plants again. I had to remove a couple trees. I did replace the trees with new trees, and I'm still in the process of planting some new plants. The swimming pool was already here, but there was no deck or anything around it. So part of the renovation did include adding the deck. The well is also located next to the pool, so they had to build that up to give access to the well. There was also some work done around the well. So the well was repiped, there was some electricity, there was new electricity added and a new pump added also. The bodega is back here as well, so that's where the laundry room is, and I have storage there. The wood pergola structure here is for outdoor dining space, so when the rainy season comes back, hopefully these passion fruit vines will grow up over the top of the structure to create some shade over the custom table that I had made. So if the bed and breakfast is full, I would have a total of possibly 8 guests. So this table outside will accommodate all 8 guests. We'll go in upstairs. When we go upstairs, we have 3 guest rooms upstairs. So we have La Habitación Verde, Amarillo, and Azul. So each guest room has a different color that matches the bathroom. So I spent a lot of time choosing paint colors. There's actually 15 paint colors in the house that I chose, including the paint colors for the outside. Interesting fact about the color white is that there are many variations of white, and it took me a very long time to find a white that would match all the colors in the house. So the white in the whole house is exactly the same white, including the ceiling, and it matches very well with all the different colors of each guest room. I also, again, it was really important to me to include the community around me inside the bed and breakfast. So all the blankets were handmade. All the furniture, the headboards were all handmade by local craftsmen. Artwork, I'm slowly collecting artwork for the bed and breakfast as well. So a lot of the artwork and textiles that you see around the bed and breakfast were purchased right here by local artists in Merida. Also on this floor, we have the entertainment room, so it's another living room space. The bed and breakfast has now been open for about 2 months, and it's really cool to see the different places, the different spaces around the bed and breakfast that the guests use. So, sometimes I'll see a guest out in the back at the pool reading a book, or I might see 2 guests that didn't know each other until they were here upstairs watching a movie, or sitting out front on the patio having coffee in the morning and just talking to each other. One of the things that's I'm most passionate about the bed and breakfast is watching different people from different cultures come together and share their experiences.
I really enjoy staying at bed and breakfasts or hostels, things like that. Still, yes, I am in my 50s and I still go to hostels just because of the interaction with people. And also, I'm going to have a video about choosing your B&B to kind of prevent a little bit of gentrification. And part of that is staying at places that are really multiple units per property, or staying inside someone's home, things like that. A video about that is coming up soon. But let's talk more about the neighborhood that we're in.
When I bought this house, I actually bought it from another person from the United States. So she was moving back to be closer to her family in San Francisco. So she bought this house in 2008. So he mentioned gentrification, and it is a big issue for the historic center of Merida. So I thought it was really important that I actually bought from somebody else instead from the United States or another foreigner, instead of displacing a Yucatecan from their space. So that was really important to me. As far as the neighborhood is concerned, it's also really important to me that I integrate into the neighborhood. So I didn't move here to be the white guy on the street. I moved here because I really like the culture here, and I really like the people, I like the food, and I wanted to live in the Yucatan. So it's important to me that I get out into the neighborhood and meet my neighbors and become part of the community. When I first moved here, I didn't have any way to cook. The house was under construction. There was cement dust everywhere. It was crazy. People all over the place all the time. So most of my meals I had outside of the house. So I did explore a lot of the places around the neighborhood, and that's how I met a lot of people. One of the places I went to almost every day is called Tuesto. It's a couple blocks from here. Tuesto makes amazing coffee, and they have really good little sandwiches. So I would go there almost every day for my morning coffee and to have a sandwich. One day I saw Jose Luis, who's the owner, coming in to the cafe with a basket full of coffee beans. Well, it turns out that Jose Luis roasts the coffee beans across the street. So he roasts the coffee beans by hand across the street. His hands were stained with coffee. Jose Luis opened that business 17 years ago, so he's celebrating 17 years in the neighborhood. He's really passionate. The people that work there are really kind, really amazing people. I speak Spanish well enough to communicate, but not to have a long conversation. Nobody there speaks English, so it was really challenging for me to try to get to know them. But at the beginning of December, I had a Christmas party, and all of the staff from Tuesto came. So it really made me feel really special to bring those people here to have a party. They also make the coffee that's served here at the bed and breakfast. There's also a Cocina Económica on the same street as the bed and breakfast, 1 block down. So, me being the foreigner, not understanding any of what these things are, I would always walk by the restaurant on my way to what's what would be like a 7-Eleven here called OXO. So I would always go there to get like a snack or something because I felt like, oh, this is safe and I understand what this is. So I would go there all the time and I'd pass this restaurant. Well, one day somebody that worked at the restaurant was standing outside of the restaurant and she saw me and she waved and said hola and on my way to the OXXO. So I thought, you know what, tomorrow I'm gonna go there. So the next day I went to the restaurant simply because she waved and said hi to me. So I walked into the restaurant. Again, nobody speaks English there, so it was very hard for me to communicate. I got a delicious sandwich. It was a very different environment that I'm used to. I got a really, really delicious sandwich. But I also ended up making friends with the entire family. So they also came to the Christmas party. Now when I see them on the street, we talk. When I go there to the restaurant, everyone, gives me hugs and kisses. I go like once a week. So those are two examples of how it was really important to me, again, that I become part of the community. So I invite these people to my house, even though we may not speak the same language. They still come over. We have coffee together, or we may drink a beer or have a snack, but we still manage to create a community even though we don't speak each other's language so well right now. Also, it's very interesting, the culture here is people will just show up at your house. So when I first moved in here, people would just show up at the house and it was really scary because if the front gate was open, they would just walk in. So I actually met some of the neighbors that way. So around the corner from me, I met these two really nice ladies and they do speak English. So they happened to come to the house one day when I ran out of gas. So the gas tank is on the roof. And I thought, okay, I don't know how I'm gonna order gas. I don't know where I order gas from or like anything about this. So they just happened to show up one day at the house the same day I ran out of gas. I was almost in tears because I was exhausted. I was working, renovating a house. I was exhausted. I was almost in tears and I told them what was happening and they stood there and called the gas company for me and waited till the gas company came to help me with the interaction and help me get gas again. Again, one of the reasons I moved here was because I really like the culture and I really like the people here and the food. And so these are huge examples about what can happen when you actually go out into the neighborhood and explore the people around you. I'm so thankful for the relationships I have with these people, even though we can't communicate so much. One day we will one day I'll speak Spanish better, but it's the neighborhood around me, around Los Colores, is very special and full of great people, and I'm so happy that I went out and explored these different places, and I'm so happy that, some days I left my gate open accidentally and people just came in to say hi. I really feel part of the neighborhood and part of the community here.
So that is great to know that even if you don't speak Spanish very well, you can still make those connections. And I think it's just putting out the effort, putting out the intention. It's something that I know that I need to do better. We live in an area where we don't really have many neighbors. There's a number of Airbnbs or houses under construction, so we don't have that kind of immediate community there to break into. But it's something that I definitely need to do better. So I'm going to commit to that right now to you guys. So I'm also going to commit to you guys watching another video. So there's a video up here that you'll see both of these more expat in Mexico videos. Check those out. Wish you were here in Merida. Hasta luego.